Hello, everybody. All right. So, as we, of course, wait to see who shows up, I'm going to go off camera for a quick moment to take care of some things here. But while gone, I'll put some music on for you. And then when I come back, we'll probably talk a little bit about what's on tap for tonight. Anyways, I did all that in a little reverse order there. Turn the music off first before actually coming back. And I thank you guys for the like and the share. Really appreciate that. So, well, here's basically, well, we'll wait a few. Okay, so we're coming up on 3 minutes here. So we'll wait just a few seconds more. I hope everybody had a good weekend. For those who happened to come by last night for the weekend edition, hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. We had a pretty interesting conversation there. Um, kind of about sex violence in comics, censorship, and the like. So, anyway, so now we're at the 3 minutes mark. So here's what's on tap. Now, initially, I did have. Um, Initially, I was going to report on the latest release date for Akira Toriyama's latest project, the Japanese theatrical release of Sandlaw, I believe, is the name of the animated movie. Also, we had a couple stories from Bleeding Fool. Um, Archie Comics. Continuing to do horror comics, and Joe Quesada getting hired at Emma. Now, the last two stories, of course, from Bleeding Fool, we're still doing. I'm gonna push the anime story back to tomorrow night because another story of a more pressing nature came in tonight. We'll probably do that a little later on, though. So, as you guys know, a few weeks ago, a few weeks ago, we did a story on longtime Mad Magazine artist, artist and comic book creator, or Mad Magazine artist and feature artist, Al Jaffe. Well, I just saw an article by Avi Green today, headlined where it looks like he's passed on. He was 102 years old, so we knew he was on the verge. He's probably going to be passing soon, but it happened. So with that being said, we'll be covering that article as well. So all three articles tonight will be comic related articles from Bleeding Fool. Then of course the wrestling wrap up, and then the Akira Toriyama article we'll do tomorrow night as part of our coverage tomorrow night. So just wanted to let you guys know that. So, anyways, we're at the 5 minute mark now. And as always, first off, if you guys haven't already, if you guys can like and share the stream, help get the word out. See if we can get some more friendly people in here. Also, if anything we talk about tonight grabs your attention, feel free to of course, comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So without any further ado, why don't we go ahead and get started here? Instead, we're going to be heading over to heading over to Bleeding Fool here. There's all right. Let me see. I just okay. Started. Have we hailed Zenu? That's usually your thing, Jr. Anyways, so we'll get it. So let's get into these articles here. So the first one here I'm gonna do tonight. Archie Comics is regrettably planning more horror comics. Article by Avi Green from published yesterday. Thrilling Adventures presents Camp Pickens. Now, granted, Archie, of course, the Archie comic company is known for primarily for Archie, for Archie comics, for and the characters of from Riverdale, Archie Andrews, Betty Cooper, Veronica, Reggie, Jughead Jones, that group of characters. And over the years, they also had, of course, Sabrina in there as well. Early on, as some of you may have noticed on one of our recent episodes of historical comic retrospect, they started out with Speed Comics doing, or actually with, actually did start out doing a hero feature in Blue Ribbon Comics with Rangatang, among others. So, anyways, let's get to this, and we can't start until Xenu is hailed. I've already started, my friend. So, anyways, again, you can hail Xenu if you want. Not stopping you from doing that. Anyways, getting to this. All right, the Valdosta Daily News is sugarcoating a new anthology special from Archie Comics built on horror themes, but which they seem to be overusing quite a bit in the past number of years. As part of the Archie Comics horror line, quote, Chilling Adventures presents, unquote, Archie Comics is scheduled to publish, quote unquote, Camp Pickens in June. It will be a one-shot anthology issue featuring 3 horror stories, according to a statement from Archie Comics. Quote, stories set at a summer camp are synonymous with Archie, unquote. Jamie L. Rotante, Archie Comics Senior Director of Editorial, said in a statement, quote, many fans will agree that some of their fondest memories were reading Archie Digest while at camp, so naturally we had to do a camp-based horror one-shot, unquote. And the book will feature some of the Riverdale gang. One must wonder why they think anybody who read their comics at camp for the humor would suddenly beg for jarring mayhem instead. That's quote unquote that's quote unquote natural. Please, one of the stories included is this. And there is, quote, Down and Out and Death Cursed, a, quote, slasher send up, unquote, by writer Tim Seeley and artist Mike Norton. Slasher setup? That's an interesting title, wouldn't you say? Or slasher send up, Down and Out and Death Cursed. That's the title, slasher send up. All right, so that's a very interesting thing there. Um, anyways, all that, and that's all we need, isn't it? That Archie comics degenerated into the kind of crude embarrassment over the past decade is despicable. Yet, it seems they've gone that way because horrors become far more acceptable to whole generations than comedy. Recalling how just recently Jennifer Aniston stated, "There's so many who now find the 1994 to 2004 Friends sitcom offensive." Yeah, because you can't do because basically these days it's almost like everybody's looking to cry me a river over comedy, right? Because you know any group that you try to put into your act, you'll get branded as some kind of istrophobe, right? Um, Yet horror themes are almost thoroughly acceptable and go by without a whisper of complaint. And the worst part is that historically, the Friday the 13th series of movies from the 1980s precipitated where the entertainment industries arrived nowadays. Ditto the Nightmare on Elm Street films. I think what they're talking about, of course, is the popularization of the teen slasher films. It started with Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. Of course, we got, I think, sometime in the mid 2000s. Let's see. Can't remember the name of the film series, but I know Nev Campbell was in it. I remember Campbell was in it. So why does Archie's publicity department, which talks about Archie comics and Archie comic fans from the past in a positive way, seem like a window to a saner and more beautiful time? Well, probably because it is. Probably because it is. Look, that's what we do on Fridays too, right? With the historical comic retrospect, kind of opening a window to maybe some more better and saner times, as it were. There, Jr. Let's hope those who like the humor comics from Archie will make sure to avoid these atrocities. They're brewing at the moment. And due to the politics they've injected over the past decade, that's why they'll have to avoid all their products entirely. Well, that's just going with all of mainstream comics right now. DC, Marvel, Image, Dark Horse. Well, I don't think as much with Dark Horse because Dark Horse tends to do comic adaptations of mangas usually, but or Western adaptations of mangas. But like, yeah, it seems like a lot of the mainstream companies are going in that route. IDW and we're seeing how much they're losing money too over it. Quote, star here. Not to mention, Archie Comics couldn't be bothered to finish the flagship and most popular of their horror titles, Afterlife with Archie. What's the point? So there we go with that one. So these are sometimes quick reads. Look at that right there. Yeah, the artwork's a little trickier because the way that looks right there, it's almost like I don't know those kind of well, kind of the orange brown overall, and then you got some of the more like cherry looking red right there. I don't know if that's supposed to be blood or what, but yeah, I guess Archie Horror is supposed to be like an imprint of Archie Comics. But anyways, so we're done with that article. So let's see. Let's get ready to move on to the next one then. And this is one that came out today. A couple that came out today here. Amazon's latest stumble, hiring former Marvel Comics executive in charge Joe Quesada. Article by Avi Green published today. So I guess there's Joe Quesada right there with the Spider-Man um, background. The Hollywood Reporter is telling that one of the most overrated artists and worst EICs or executives in charge for Marvel has been hired by Amazon's TV streaming division to develop more comic adaptations for their channels. Amazon has recruited one of Marvel's former bigwigs as the streamer plans a greater focus on comic book films and TV series. Joe Quesada, the former Marvel Comics editor-in-chief and ex-Marvel Entertainment chief creative officer, has signed an exclusive first-look film and television deal with the retail giant. Under the deal, Quesada will focus on adapting existing and new comic book IP for Jennifer Salke-led streamer. Or the Jennifer Salke-led streamer. See if you guys are saying anything more. Not this far. Alright, so continuing on here. Amazon, which is already working on a slate of Sony-owned Marvel projects with studio-based Phil Lord and Chris Miller, now lands a seasoned comic book powerhouse with a keen knowledge of characters and writers. Quesada spent 24 years with Marvel, helping to produce storylines that later became big screen arcs, including Civil War, Age of Ultron, and Guardians of the Galaxy. He developed characters including Ms. Marvel and Miles Morales, the latter of whom is at the center of the Oscar-winning Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. During his time as creative chief, he was a key player in the first group of Marvel Studios movies and TV series, and is credited as an exec producer on the likes of Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Interesting, they describe him as a quote-unquote bigwig, because that word could be used to describe a gangster. Oh, man. Ouch. He's apparently comparing Quesada to a gangster. You, homie. Right? Anyways. If anything, the way Quesada ran Marvel in his time was thoroughly reprehensible, and some of the early examples of politicized storytelling and wokeness began under his reign as executive in charge. The mistreatment of Mary Jane Watson and breaking up of the Spider marriage was just the icing on the cake. I wonder if he had anything to do with the whole turning Iceman gay thing. that and interesting they note he was involved with the film adaptation in the past decade or so, because anybody who'd go miles out of his way to deconstruct hard work of geniuses over petty issues has no business working in major movies and doesn't deserve the work. Yet that's exactly what The aforementioned Isaac Perlmutter gave Quesada, and the equally awful Brian Bendis when he was serving the main overseer for the Marvel film franchise in the past decade. And that's why conservative credentials or credentials or none, I'm not sorry to see Perlmutter get the pink slip from Disney's employ, following all of the financial disasters they caused themselves by going increasingly woke. The whole go woke, go broke, go woke, go broke bit right there. Anyways, I'd strongly recommend anybody in the know of Quesada's blatant disrespect for Stan Lee's hard work not bother watching any new TV shows and movies he develops. His selection for executive in charge years before was a tragedy, and today only gives credence to anybody who feels Marvel should have concluded publication in the early 2000s. Yeah, only gets credence meaning believability. So there we go with that one. Let's see what time is it? It's like almost 22 minutes in. Okay, we're making good time here. And of course, after this next article, we'll have, of course, a wrestling wrap up, and then this day in each history. But anyways, we got one more article to go over here. Al Jaffe dead at 102, appreciating Mad Magazine's Matt Hart. Now, if you guys remember, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we did an article on this guy where they were going over an interview he did back in 2008, of course, the age of 87. So now, of course, at the age of 102, he's finally passed on. If you guys remember, this is a guy, was just one of the guys who initially got his start in comics under the watchful eyes of Will Eisner and Stan Lee. So he's from that generation. So let's go ahead and article by Avi Green published earlier today. There's a picture of him right there. Updated. It's been reported that Al Jaffe has passed away at 102. And then here's I guess, Tom Hintis is the one who, I guess, initially reported this. I'm very sad to report that the great Al Jaffe has died. He had celebrated his 102nd birthday just last month. Incredible legend. Rest in peace to a giant of cartooning. Yes, yeah, I remember that was the whole thing right there. That's why we were covering him in the first season, because he had his 102nd birthday. So, anyways, I wonder if this is. Ah, yep. I thought this is going to be a totally new article, but I had actually covered this. All they did with this is just update it to let everybody know that he had passed away. But we had actually already covered this article like a month ago when he initially turned 102. But he had his birthday. All right, I didn't realize that's what was. I didn't realize that's what they were just updating it. I thought this is going to be a whole new article, but all they simply did was update an article they'd already done. We'd already covered this article. So just in summation, from in case you missed my coverage of it last month, Al Jaffe, in this article they basically kind of redid an interview that he had back in back about 15 years ago. So back in 2002, I believe, or 2008. So it was like 15 years ago, about how he talked about his experiences. And for those of you who may not remember just highlights, he got to start as a comic book artist, as I said, working for Stan Lee and later Will Eisner. Then he spent from 1964 to 2019 as part of Mad Magazine, working as a feature artist with them for 55 years, up until, of course, Mad Magazine's demise in 2019. So apparently he's passed away. So what we'll do here is we're going to go ahead and do a quick moment of silence for him. Some of you may feel he's, obviously those who may know his work from Mad Magazine, or even, we may even see some of it in the historical comic retrospect. He's one of the guys who was talking about how there was a point when, as superhero comics were kind of starting to die down a bit in the late 40s, there was kind of a transition going more towards like kind of the teeny bopper type comic, like Arch, like what we were talking about with Archie earlier. Those kind of comics were becoming more popular at the time, and he was a big part of that. He was doing work. He was basically doing the art and the scripts for Patsy Walker, who was another one of those kind of teeny bopper characters. Let's see. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Yep. Yeah. So, anyways, we're gonna go ahead and do a moment of silence here for him, and then we'll probably and from there we'll move on to probably the wrestling, as we're getting to about halfway through the show here. So we'll probably move on to the wrestling wrap up after this. So, anyways. Okay, so with that being said, so now we're gonna go ahead and move on to the wrestling news, as wrestling wrap up, as we got news coming out of got WWE news, AEW, Ring of Honor news, and NWA news. As this past Friday, the NWA had their 312 pay-per-view. Go over that. Also, in a double dose, they had AEW had Rampage and Battle of the Belts. We'll go over that as well. At least Battle of the Belts. But also in WWE news, so there is talk that if the WWE sale to Endeavor goes through, that Vince McMahon would naturally be losing some power. He'll only be able to retain. He's only going to be able to retain, an 18% voting share or what have you. But he'll actually have to start answering to other people, which will be for the first time in like 40 plus years that he's actually had to do that since he bought the WWE. Because if y'all remember, he initially bought what we now know today as the WWE from his father. So yeah. Tonight's Raw, they're gonna probably be looking to continue some storylines. They normally they mentioned so there's a couple of things one, seems to be a hiring freeze on right now, which I guess would make some sense because um, with the sale to Endeavor, they don't want to make too many changes. That's also why they're kind of delaying the NXT call ups. Usually there's some NXT call ups after WrestleMania, but they're delaying that. They believe they're holding those through until they're holding those through until the draft. So Triple H has announced a draft. So hey Woody, hail Xenu and his warrior bride Xena. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, as I said, guys, if you guys can like and share the thing, see we get some more friendly people in here, that'd be appreciated. Also, if you haven't already, if you haven't already, and also if you haven't already, anyways. Also, if anything here we talk about catches your attention, um, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I will do my best to answer the questions to the best of my ability. All right. So with that, let's see now. And Woody, you just said something here. So let's see. We shall replace Archie with Prince Archie, Mountbatten, Windsor. Yeah. Yeah. We were. I don't know if you just got here, Woody, or if you actually did hear the story went over a couple minutes ago. Yeah, so Archie's been focusing more on horror comics lately, and according to at least Avi Green from Bleeding Fool, um, something that hasn't worked as well for them as they thought. So just got here, okay, yeah. So, anyways, yeah. Yeah, yeah, Judge time because we're probably in a few minutes here. We'll probably do this day in each history, but first off, of course, just doing kind of the wrestling wrap up. So, anyways, let me go now to talk about what happened over the weekend on Friday. Of course, Ring of Honor had its or I'm sorry, AEW had its Battle of the Belts event from the Ryan Center in um, Kingston, Rhode Island. As of course, Orange Cassidy defended and retained the international title over Dralistico. Dralistico from La Facción Ingo Nerable. Um, and the match kind of set up for a title match, another title match coming up this Wednesday on Dynamite. Kind of go over the Dynamite card as we would see it here soon enough. Jade Cargill retained the TBS title over Wrestling Prodigy Billy Starks. If you guys have not seen Billy Starks, for those of you who are still wrestling fans and like to watch wrestling, you should really check out this young lady. She's like 18 years old. She's already been in the business for like 4 years. Okay, got her start in the Midwest, in Indiana, and a couple other states, I believe. Obviously, because probably depending upon the different athletic commissions, She couldn't probably wrestle in certain states because of her age, but at 18 now, she's finally getting some exposure. She's been on Impact a couple of times. She's been in both Ring of Honor and AEW, and this girl is Yanks. Yeah. Um, yeah. So, anyways, but as I was saying, which also kind of led into more of her issues with Taya Valkyrie. Taya Valkyrie had recently signed with AEW, and of course, when she came in, decided to continue to use her move known as Road to Valhalla. Of course, the only problem is Jade's already using that move, calling it Jaded. Basically, it's a elevated double chicken wing facebuster combination, where they get behind the opponent, get them in a double chicken wing, lift them up, and then drop them face first to the mat. So it's actually a move that was originated by Jazz. You know, but anyways, and then the recently crowned Ring of Honor World Tag Team, the Lucha Brothers, coming off of their big win at last Friday's Super Card of Honor event in the Reach for the Sky ladder match for the vacated Ring of Honor. If for some of you may not know, they were initially held by the Briscoe brothers, and then Mark had been holding on to them after Jay's passing up until this point, until he, of course, relinquished the belts at the event, and then they put him up in a Reach for the Sky ladder match, and I think it was something like 5 or 6 teams were competing in the match, and Lucha Brothers became the Ring of Honor World Tag. They're also, of course, former AEW World Tag Team Champions, and of course, Battle of the Belt 6, as it was. That's the name of the event. Battle of the Belt 6 was used to set up for this Wednesday's Dynamite. As I mentioned, one of the matches on this Wednesday's Dynamite is going to be Orange Cassidy defending the AEW International title against Buddy Matthews of House of Black. As of course the Cassidy and Best Friends had Chuck Trent Beretta and Chuck Taylor had challenged House of Black for the trios title. So they felt that it was only fair that Cassidy should put up his title against one of them and Buddy Matthews. So that's slated to be the main event. He'll have Julia Hart in his corner. She's coming off of her main event match with Anna Jay, which was kind of panned by a lot of people. Let's see. Also, this Wednesday's Dynamite, of course, comes to everybody live from the University of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, or University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee's Panther Arena in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Also on the match, Ring of Honor World Champion Claudio Castagnoli and John Moxley of the Blackpool Combat Club will be taking on Brandon Cutler and Michael Nakazawa, a couple of guys who are known for hanging out with the Elite, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. As with Bryan Danielson's promo last Wednesday, the Blackpool Combat Club has certified their heel turn here, and these guys are a different kind of heel team. The Jericho Appreciation Society is kind of a comedic heel team, where these guys are the real real baddies, as it were. These are the guys who just go out there and just beat the what out of their opponents. Real rough and tumble kind of faction here. Darby Allin and Swerve Strickland will be taking on each other, and then Chris Jericho has a match with Limitless Keith Lee. So that's coming up on Wednesday's Dynamite. And also we do have some results from the NWA in this past Friday, aside from Battle of the Belts 2 happening on TNT on for AEW. National Wrestling Alliance is holding its 312 pay-per-view from the from Chicago. All the proceeds were going to a foundation, I guess, over a shooting that happened there. The pre-show for the event, which was shown on YouTube, saw in the main event, saw the team of Mike Knox and Trevor Murdoch defeat the team of Daisy Kill and Talos. This guy Daisy Kill kind of looks like a Van Hammer wannabe. I'm not kidding you. But you got a couple of two very big, powerful, tough men here in Mike Knox and Trevor Murdoch. Trevor Murdoch, of course, a former NWA, a two-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion, former NWA National Heavyweight Champion, also a former WWF. I think he was a 2 or 3-time WWF World Tag Team Champion with the late Lance Cade. Also on the night in a hair versus mask strap match, Gadget Gimp defeated Sal Powell in the Battle of the Miserably Faithful. Country Gentlemen defended and retained the United States World Tag Team Championships over a team known as Savages of Blake Troop and Jack Dane with Chris Silvio in his corner. And then to open up the card, Natalia Markova defeated La Brava Escobar. So that was the pre-show, and now for the of course for the 312 event itself, you had Joe Galley, Tim Storm, and Danny Diaz is filling in for Velvet Sky, who had a family emergency, but she could not do the show. But the night saw EC3 become the new national heavyweight champions. He defeated Scion. The team of M95, Maddie and Missa Kate, retained the World Women's Tag Team Championships over Pretty Empowered 2.0 of Ella Envy and Roxy. Kratos defeated Yavo the Clown. In a national heavyweight number 1 contender Bob Luce Memorial 26-man Battle Royal, Thrillbilly Silas Mason outlasted, of course, 25 other men in that to become basically the number 1 contender to the national to EC3 and be probably the next guy to challenge him for the national title. Let's see. Among some other guys, of course. They also had history that night as the first NWA World Women's Television Champion was crowned, as Kenzie Page would defeat Maxie Impaler, as Max, of course, had Father James Mitchell in her corner. Kerry Morton retained the World Junior Heavyweight title over Joe Alonzo. Bully Ray had defeated television champion Tom Latimer in a non-title match via DQ. La Rebellion of Bestia 666 and Mecha Wolf had retained the World Tag Team titles over Magna Muscle of Dak Draper and Mims. Camille retained the World Women's title over Rosa Negra, and Tyrus had retained the World Heavyweight title over Chris Adonis. Situation with Tyrus and Black G's and EC3 and Idol Sports Management is going to start heating up there in the NWA, so you might want to be watching for that. Now we're just past the 45-minute mark here, so it would be a good time for us to start to wind things down a bit, as we're going to go ahead and take a look back at, today being Monday, April the 10th, 2023. We're going to take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. History! So let me just remind myself. Okay, 73, 2018, 1933. And 2008. Okay. So without any further ado, let's take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. So first off, we're going to head back 90 years ago today, as on this date, 90 years ago today, Walter, Going to Blazes, a 1933 short animated film by Walter Lantz Productions. That's, of course, the company that gave us Woody Woodpecker. Starring Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. This, of course, is the 70th Oswald short by Walter Lantz, the 122nd in the entire series. So here's the plot for this particular movie here. The boy Beagle is running on the street until he sees a firewoman dancing in front of the fire station. Believing the firewoman has mental issues, Boy Beagle tries to assault her with an axe. I guess the whole Lizzie Borden thing, I guess. Boy Beagle misses, and this fire hose and hits a fire hose instead. Oswald, who is the fire chief, learns of the problem and fixes the hose. Oswald then decides to discipline the boy Beagle. So that's basically, basically it has. But on this date back 90 years ago today, Going to Blazes, an animated short film by Walter Lantz Productions and featuring Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Premiered on this date back in 1933. So with that being said, let's get ready to move on to the next piece of Nietzsche history here. We're heading back 50 years ago today. As on this date 50 years ago today, as we were talking about, of course, horror comics earlier, the 5th issue of Chamber of Chills from Marvel Comics went on sale on this date back in 1973, 50 years ago today. It was edited by Roy Thomas, sold for 20 cents, 32 pages. You had 4 features in there, including The Devil's Dowry, Haunt and Run, I Can't Miss, and a tune by any other name. So let's go ahead and just take a quick peek at these stories. So you had an 8-pager, The Devil's Dowry, written by Larry D. Lieber, penciled by J. Scott Pike, and then Cheek Stone did the inking for this story, for the 5th issue of Chamber of Chills. Then you had a 3-pager called Haunt and Run, written by Tony Isabella, with art by Paul Riemann and Charlotte Jeter did the lettering. And then you had a 4-pager, It Can't Miss, from artist J. Scott Pike, which in this particular story was reprinted from Journey into Mystery #1 back in 1952. So about 20 years, reprinted about 20 years later. And then the final story at the end of the book, A Tomb by Any Other Name, was 6 pages, written by Donald F. McGregor, with art by Sid Shores. So there you go. So on this date, 50 years ago today, the 5th issue of Chamber of Chills went on sale on this date from Marvel Comics. Also on this date in 2008, which was 15 years ago today, before I do that, I see there's a comment. So, had a sandwich and returned. Yeah, well, we're finishing up here. So on this date, 15 years ago today, the following anime went on Japanese television on this date back in 2008. Studio Dean's Junjo Romantica, Madhouse's Kaiba, and Production IG's Library War. So, Studio Dean's Junjo Romantica, Madhouse's Kaiba, and Production IG's Library War all premiered on this date 15 years ago today, back in 2008. Hail Xenu and Woody. All right. And finally, the last piece of niche history that we're doing. On this date 5 years ago today, the Andre the Giant documentary premiered on this, I believe was released or premiered on this date. It was a biography on the life of Andre the Giant, which premiered on the HBO cable network. The movie, produced by Janine Marmot and Bill Simmons, focuses on Andre's life with gigantism, also known, the technical name acromegaly, his professional wrestling career and forays into mainstream entertainment. Even outside Andre was larger than life. He was well known for being larger than life. He was somebody who just, everybody loved Andre throughout his life and career. Let's see. And also includes interviews with those who worked with Andre in wrestling, along with media and entertainment personalities and family members. So, 5 years ago, the documentary Andre the Giant premiered on HBO. So with that, thank everybody for being here tonight. Let's see. We'll be back here tomorrow night with more niche news. I'll probably be doing the Akira Toriyama story tomorrow night with whatever new stories we gather from that. Don't forget, of course, this Friday, Rick Piper from Cross Comics will be joining me for the historical comic retrospect, as we'll be starting our coverage of October from books that went on sale on October 39. Of course, one of those books we'll be looking at will be Detective Comics Volume 1, number 33, featuring the Batman Wars Against the Dirigible of Doom, in which, as part of the story, we will get a flashback to Batman's origin. We'll also be looking at the Tara, Sandman, and depending upon time and stuff like that, maybe even Hop Harrigan and Squibbly as well. So hope to see everybody back here tomorrow, as well as every night and on Friday night. So until then, bye!